Everyone. On behalf of Amity Institute of International Studies, I, Vasundhara Chauhan, welcome you to the fourth technical session of VIJIGISHU 2020 on the theme Bilateral Relations between South Asian Nations. I extend a very warm welcome to our distinguished chair for the session, Professor Dr. Sukhwant Singh Bindra, Director Research, Amity Institute of Public Policy and Amity Institute of International Studies. Professor Bindra has 44 years of experience in the field, during which he held various important positions, including the post of Director Chair for Indian Studies at the Department of Political Science, University of Mainz. He has attended more than 40 national and international conferences and is professionally affiliated to prestigious institutions like Indian Political Science Association, Indian Academy of Social Science, and Indian Council of World Affairs. Professor Bindra has 52 publications accorded to his name and has authored more than 7 books, including Indo-Pak Relations, Tashkent to Simla Agreement, Indo-Bangladesh Relations, India and Her Neighbors, and Determinants of Pakistan's Foreign Policy, to name a few. I would also like to welcome our presenters for the session, Ms. Nancy Puri, Research Scholar, AIIS, Ms. Gopika Puduvayal, PG Student, AIIS, Dr. Lobsang Dorji, Lecturer, Royal University of Bhutan, Ms. Garima Gerola, Research Scholar, Amity University, Mr. Phoebe Mock, Research Scholar, Soka University, Japan, and Dr. Sujit Datta, Associate Professor, University of Chittagong, Bangladesh. I also welcome our fellow scholars and students who have joined us through Zoom and are watching us live on Facebook. It is our immense pleasure to have you all with us today. Now, without any further ado,
very sorry for the interruption for this
yes,
session.
sir.
Along with our Professor Bindra sir,
Yes.
Ms. Bhavna Sharma would be here as a discussant, as Professor Bindra sir had just advised. So at the end of the session, Dr. Bhavna Sharma would be coming here as a role of discussant. So I also welcome to Bhavna Sharma ma'am as well.
Okay,
thank you.
Welcome, ma'am. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
We are really happy to have you here with us.
Over to Vasundhara Chauhan. Over to you.
Okay, sir. Now, without any further ado, I would kindly request the esteemed chair to take the session forward.
Good afternoon to everybody. I am Professor Bindra, now at present in Amritsar. So, the theme of today, the topic of today is the bilateral relations among the South Asian nations. When we talk of South Asian nations, we are to include China also. Of course, some other nations, because we just cannot study the bilateral relations among the South Asian nations with in isolation. As far as India's neighbors are concerned, we can say China, Pakistan, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. I will just give you a brief summary. Before starting, I am to say few words to the paper presentators. I think 6 participants are listed. You are to take only 12 to 15 minutes, not more than that in any case. And then I will speak less, you are to speak more. Ms. Bhavna Sharma, Assistant Professor, AIES, is the discussant. At the end of the you can say seminar of the session, she will raise all the points in her summary, and then you can ask questions. So then let me give you the brief introduction of Sino-Indian relations, then Sino-Indo-Pak relations, then Indo-Sri Lanka relations, India and Bangladesh, and of course, India and Nepal too. As far as Sino-Indian relations are concerned, it's a well-known fact that we have many areas of crisis and cooperation. Crisis areas are more, cooperation areas are less. When People's Republic of China emerged on the world map we were quick to recognize the new regime. And also, we took the Chinese UN membership case very seriously and supported China in the United Nations on almost every count unless it got the full membership. In the initial stages, we were having very close relations. There were, you can say, slogans of Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai in Chandni Chowk with Nehru and Chaman Lai and others. But the situation took a new turn when in 1956, Nehru visited Beijing. And during his visit, he pointed out that many important strategic areas of India were shown in the maps, official maps published by the Chinese government. They assured that we will make correction in the meanwhile. The main area of crisis, then when China refused to recognize the McMahon line between the two countries, but accepted McMahon line between China and Myanmar. You can say a different approach it adopted. And we had a very, you can say, when we had a war with China in 1962, October 1962, that war changed the whole contour concept of, you can say, Sino-Indian relations. Then so many other factors stepped in. We had a crushing defeat at the hands of Chinese. And interestingly, that was an acid test for India's policy of non-alignment. When we were losing, we knocked at the door of uh, 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 John F. Kennedy, President Kennedy, and requested him, please, हम तो मर गए, हमारी मदद कीजिए. Then the US stepped in and immediately supplied arms to Pakistan, but with a condition that after the end of the war, we are to hold consultation with Pakistan on the Kashmir issue. So, and the process, we restored diplomatic relations with China during the Janata Party regime when Atal Bihari Vajpayee was the Minister for External Affairs and Morarji Desai was the Prime Minister. When this fellow Vajpayee was in Beijing. Anyhow, we were tracing. I will cut short the history of Sino-Indian relation. Quickly move to the other neighbors, like Pakistan. With Pakistan, we have unfriendly relations, many ups and downs. We watched since 1947. We had 3 wars with Pakistan. Once in 1948, then in 1965, then 1971, then Kargil conflict in 1998, 1999. And then many issues when we detonated nuclear devices, the Kashmir issue is still a bone of contention in Indo-Pak relations. And you can say about the terrorism also. The terrorism also is the main issue. We usually accuse Pakistan that ISI is behind every terrorist activity. Of course, there are other factors too. As far as the Sino-India-Nepal relations are concerned, the first treaty we signed with Nepal was in 1950. It is known as Indo-Nepal Trade Agreement. We helped in a big way in, you can say, building the infrastructure in Nepal, from hospitals, colleges, schools, dams to, you can say, roads, everything. And but when the China factor emerged, like now the Chinese are wooing the Nepalese government. There is a now democratically elected government in China. Earlier it was monarchy there. Now a few months back, Nepal's government published maps, and in the maps published, it showed 3 important areas of India as the Nepalese territories, and instructed even the Central Bank of Nepal to mint coin by publishing the new map. So with some differences emerged, but still we are good friends and hope so. The reason being Chinese factor changing the relationship. We are accused of big brother in the case of when we talk of Indo-Sri Lanka relations. We were involved in the ethnic crisis. Indian peacekeeping force was sent there, and Rajiv Gandhi played an important role. And Sri Lanka also accused of India's sometime bullying and working, posing as a big brother. Then Bangladesh, a very, very important, you can say, area. India played an effective role in the emergence of Bangladesh, in the dismemberment of Pakistan. I have an altogether different viewpoint. The reason being my PhD topic was Indo-Pak relation, Tashkent to Shimla Agreement. I studied every aspect, and at that time there were no computers, no data available. I consulted the original sources, original newspapers of Pakistan, debates, everything. I got the impression that it was, to my mind, a blunder committed by India. Though it's my personal view, being a student of international relations, which gave birth to so many problems. The problems in the refugees, the problem of minorities, non-resident, everything in Northeast and everything. And we are hoping that Farakka barrage dispute will be solved if at our satisfaction, but that dispute is still lingering. And the system in Bangladesh is altogether different. In general, I can say if we are analyzing any issue related with bilateral issue or multilateral issue among nations, different nations, any systems, foreign policy moves, foreign policy objectives, or any crisis situation, we are to first take into consideration the system prevailing in a country, whether it's a democratic system, whether it's a presidential form of government, whether it's a parliamentary form of government, or all the powers are concentrated at one place. And similarly, we are to see the effective role of legislature, judiciary, and for executive also. So domestic environment, domestic compulsions, then international environment, international compulsion, geopolitical situation, all these factors are to keep in mind. Just making a statement is not enough. You can say, look, you may make a sweeping statement. Being a researcher for the last 47 years, not 44 as mentioned by Anchor, I feel so, okay, one has to be vigilant about when analyzing anything, any issue, tracing the history, keeping in mind the historical background. Of course, all the factors. Today, you consult Professor Google, he is your guru, and getting every thing from him. But to my mind, you are to adopt a different method if you really want to a good researcher. Now I invite the first participant, Nancy Puri. You are to announce your topic and you are given, Bhavna Sharma, you are to pinpoint when 12 minutes are over. You are to sum up your presentation in 15 minutes. Okay, start now.
Firstly, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Bhavna ma'am. Firstly, I would like to thank AIIS, NIICE, and Muller Foundation for giving me the opportunity to present my paper. So, my topic is on bilateral relations, South Asian nations in COVID-19 pandemic, a review. South Asia, yes, South Asia is one of the most populated regions of the world, marred with political tensions, security issues, and lack of economic development. The region has not been able to establish strong health infrastructure. With high incidence of multidimensional poverty throughout the region, it is fighting major pandemic like that of coronavirus. The crisis will prove a major economic challenge to each government in the region. The coronavirus disease which emerged from Wuhan, China, is now pandemic affecting across the globe. Governments of different countries have developed and adopted various policies to contain this epidemic, and the most common were the social distancing and lockdown. Among the South Asian countries, Pakistan and India have the highest number of registered cases of positive COVID-19 patients, followed by Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, and Maldives. Nepal and Bhutan have registered low number of cases of positive COVID-19 patients. If I talk about post-COVID-19 world, a collective action within South Asian countries is required to make a more rapid and peaceful exit from the crisis. In the South Asian countries, the rampant coronavirus pandemic could affect more than 1.9 billion people, almost a quarter of the world's population. Given the weaknesses of national healthcare system, the fight against the virus seems to be lost before it has even begun. The economic damage will increase the levels of poverty and inequality, and it is likely to aggravate rather than mitigate a number of existing conflicts. On the domestic front, it is feared that authoritarian tendencies will increase during the management of the crisis. In the regional context, China could further expand its influence at the expense of India. According to World Health Organization, COVID-19 is the infectious disease caused by the most recently discovered virus. This new virus and disease were unknown before the outbreak began in Wuhan, China in December 2019. In South Asia, India is one of the most populated regions as well as the second largest populated country in the world. To combat COVID-19, India has learned various preventive measures from China and also from various other affected parts of the world. In March, India had followed some measures such as to check symptomatic COVID-19 passengers traveling from abroad. India has created quarantine centers for those passengers either showing symptoms or those who are coming from COVID-19 affected countries. In March itself, India government had closed down all public and private schools, colleges, universities, shopping malls, etc. All public and private organizations had permitted their employees to work from home. To stop the spread the virus, the nations throughout the world had started to seal their borders as well as social distancing norm among people was stressed upon. From 25th March 2020, government had suspended all the domestic air flights. On 24th March 2020, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi had announced a total lockdown in all over India. On 30th March 2020, India had recorded 1,251 corona positive cases. However, by 6th April 2020, the cases increased to 4,314 positive patients. In Pakistan, government had imposed travel restrictions for the people, but for an economically poor country, a total lockdown measures was not possible. Clerics are refusing to close their mosque in lockdown. The Pakistani National Institute of Health has followed important protocols to curb and prevent the transmission of COVID-19 disease. In March 2020, Pakistan lacked testing centers in the region and suspected samples were sent to foreign laboratories. Later, Pakistan had received test kits from China. But now, Pakistan is capable to test the suspected patients at its own NIH laboratory, though in Pakistan, there are less number of quarantine centers for COVID-19 patients. After India, Pakistan has the second highest number of suspected COVID-19 patients. So move on to the next slide. Sorry. In Afghanistan, the first case of coronavirus was found in the person who visited from Iran. It has been mentioned by the Afghan Public Health Ministry that if serious action is not adopted immediately, an estimate of 25.6 million Afghans will be infected and 110,000 Afghans would die from COVID-19. The Ministry of Health and Education of Afghanistan has shut down all schools and restricted Nowruz, that is Persian New Year celebration, in order to curb the virus to spread in the country. Total population in Afghanistan is 31.6 million and 71.5% of whom live in rural areas. Currently, national isolation centers consist of 100 beds in Afghanistan. There is a lack of laboratory to diagnose patients. This leads to delay in treating the patients in hospitals and to curb the virus from the country. Another concerning issue is the shortage of healthcare workers. There are only 9.4 skilled health professionals and 1.9 physicians per 10,000 individuals in Afghanistan. Physicians are disproportionately distributed across the country with 7.2 physicians per 10,000 people in urban areas and few as 0.6 physicians per 10,000 in rural areas. Bangladesh had confirmed its first COVID-19 case on 7th March 2020. In March 2020, all schools were shut down and government imposed thermal scanner checking at the international airports. From 16th March 2020, Bangladesh government had announced a strict quarantine measures for those passengers who had returned back from abroad. Bangladesh had postponed all cultural events, including the 100th birth anniversary celebration of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. It is observed that Bangladesh has not imposed a strict lockdown measures due to which people were not following the norms carefully and led millions of citizens coming out on the street, especially in Dhaka. There are approx 1.1 million slum dwellers residing in Dhaka, the capital of Bangladesh. These slum dwellers are living in a very congested area and are hardly aware of the threat from the novel coronavirus. From the period March to June 2020, there has been a rise of positive COVID-19 patients in Bangladesh. Along with the slum dwellers, Bangladesh also hosts over a million Rohingya refugees, most of whom are living in close quarters in refugee camps where the sanitization facilities are even scarce. In South Asia, there are numerous refugee camps holding Afghans, Kashmiri Pandits, Rohingyas, etc. It should be noted that the concept of lockdown within these camps or maintaining social distancing is virtually impossible and they remain harmed by getting infected in large numbers. If I move on to the next slide, yes. In Sri Lanka, the first coronavirus case was found on 10th March 2020. Sri Lanka government had already imposed lockdown even before the first case of coronavirus was detected in the country. To curb the virus to spread in the country, Sri Lankan government had followed precautionary measures such as to suspend flights to China and Saudi Arabia. Government had announced work from home for both public and private sectors.
Nancy,
During,
now, Nancy,
yes, sir.
quickly wind up now.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay. During curfew times, traders supplied adequate amount of food and other essential items at door-to-door services. To curb the virus, government imposed social distancing measures self-quarantine methods, and appropriate hygiene activities, etc. Government had banned all types of mass gathering, such as visit to picnics, pilgrimage, etc. The patients who were suspected with the symptoms of coronavirus was quarantined in regional centers and are under the control of armed forces. Further, this led to prevent the virus to spread in the country. In South Asia, there is more threat of getting virus to spread more rapidly except in the countries like Maldives and Bhutan. Currently, each and every country in South Asia is experiencing the community spread of the virus rather than the people who had traveled to infected country. Though the countries of South Asia has entered into third phase where obviously the disease will spread more rapidly. South Asia is one of the most poorest and most populous regions. The health care facilities of these regions are also very weak. Each of South Asia's 8 countries has one of the lowest numbers of physicians per capita. It ranges from 0.3 physicians per 1,000 people in Afghanistan to just 1 physician per 1,000 people in Maldives, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. At the best of times, there are too few health workers with negligible sources. Due to such reasons, this region will still be such more vulnerable if the severe cases of COVID-19 increases. So far, if I conclude, due to this pandemic crisis, no countries had gained a winning position. Each and every country had faced a loss in the economy. As of now, no government in the world can be said to have come out from the crisis with reputation or power enhanced. Most of the governments are in basic survival mode. From the future perspective, South Asia will face a long time to come out from the coronavirus crisis. So that was all for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy Puri. Now I invite Miss Gopika, PG students in uh, AIES, to present his paper. Gopika, please. You are
Thank
welcome.
you, sir. Thank you, sir. First of all, I want to thank Dr. Professor Sukhvinta Sbinta, Dr. Bhavna ma'am, Amity Institute of International Studies, and IIC in Nepal, and Mulia Foundation for giving me this opportunity. The topic for my paper is India-Sri Lanka relations, areas of conflict and resolution. So I will be sharing my presentation now. India and Sri Lanka, being neighboring countries, have a rich past. From Sri Lanka even finds its place in Indian mythology of Ramayana. The all-famous story of Lord Rama, Hanuman, along with his troop of monkey soldiers constructing the Ramasetu bridge to bring back goddess Sita, is known to everyone. And in that context, we can say that Hanuman is India's first diplomat. But looking back from building of Ramasetu to holding present-day virtual meetings by the prime ministers, both countries have surely come a long way in matters of diplomacy. First, we shall have a look at the brief history of India-Sri Lanka relations, and then let's focus on present-day areas of conflicts and resolutions. Both countries have a colonial past and both got independence almost at the same time. After that, Sri Lanka had an issue of their own, that is the ethno-linguistic divide in the country. Here we have the data of the ethnic composition of Sri Lanka. Looking at this data, we realize that more than 70% of the population are Sinhalese, and the Tamils are not the original inhabitants of Sri Lanka. During the 14th and 15th century, the South Indian kingdoms invaded the land of Sri Lanka, and then the Tamil population migrated and settled there. Then, with the arrival of foreign settlers, things further started to change. Britishers brought forward agricultural reforms and they started plantations of tea, rubber, coffee, and coconut in a large scale manner. This attracted workforce and laborers from India, mainly Tamils, started settling there. This influx added to the existing population of Tamils in Sri Lanka and further resentment amongst the Sinhala community. After getting independence, things started to take a turn for the worse. Uh, In 1956, the Ceylon government brought forward Sinhala Only Act. This act made Sinhalese as the official language. For Following this, there was the widespread violence and riots, and a state of emergency had to be declared. The PM who brought forward this bill, SWRD Bandaranaike, was assassinated in 1959, and his widow, Sirimavo Bandaranaike, became the prime minister. And not just any prime minister, but she was the world's first ever female prime minister. Under her rule, India and Ceylon signed the Sirimavo Shastri Pact in 1964. As per this agreement, Ceylon agreed to give citizenship to 3 lakh Indian Tamils. In return, India would repatriate around 5 lakh Tamils, but both countries never stuck to the actual number. In 1972, Ceylon became Republic of Sri Lanka. Then, in 1983, the country went into a civil war. Further, from 1983 to 2009, the country witnessed and went through a lot. The civil wars was between Sri Lankan government and LTTE, Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, or popularly known as Tamil Tigers. The war was long, there was participation of many nations, but let us just focus on the role of India. Initially for India, there was pressure from the Tamil Nadu government to take a pro-Tamil stance in Sri Lanka. India wanted to do negotiations and bring peace in the country. In 1987, Indian Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi and Sri Lankan Prime Minister Jayawardene jointly signed the India-Sri Lanka Accords. As per this agreement, the government will implement the 13th Amendment, which we'll be discussing in detail in the upcoming slides, and the LTTE and other militant groups should lay down their arms. To ensure the proper execution of ISLA, India sent their Indian peacekeeping force to the northern parts of Sri Lanka. However, the situations changed. LTTE showed their disagreements to ISLA and resorted to the usage of arms, and IPKF had to interfere. It should have only taken few weeks to resolve the issue, but we have to understand the fact that IPKF was sent to a foreign land without proper understanding of the territory and with very few weapons. Therefore, they were unprepared and the result was not that fruitful. It is believed that the intervention of IPKF is the reason behind the assassination of former Indian Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi. In 1990, India completely withdrew its troops, but the damage was already done. Sri Lanka was still fighting the war, and in March 2009, the war came to an end when the LTTE chief V. Prabhakaran was assassinated. When the war ended, both sides, along with IPKF, was accused of war crimes, human rights violation. But till date, no war criminals have been served. And still, there are many missing and grieving citizens to whom justice hasn't been served. Now we'll be looking at some of the issues at hand. The 13th Amendment. The 13th Amendment to the Constitution of Sri Lanka was a result of India-Sri Lanka Accords signed in the year 1987. As per this amendment, there will be a creation of provincial councils in Sri Lanka, along with power sharing and also ensuring equal participation from all sectors. This act also makes Sinhala and Tamil as official languages of the country and English as the link language. The existing fear is that the government may repeal the 13th Amendment, and the 13th Amendment is the only provision in the Constitution that is a slight note in the direction of Sri Lanka's Tamil population. What confirms this fear is the talk of 20th Amendment Bill. The bill greatly enhances the powers of executing president while replacing the 90th Amendment Act, which was put forward to keep a check on the powers. Many fear that the 20th Amendment will be a path to autocracy and dictatorship. And if that happens, the other fear is the scrapping of the 13th Amendment. Now let us look onto another area of conflict, that is the fishermen issue amongst these countries. In 1974 and 1976, the two countries signed the International Maritime Boundary Line to demarcate the maritime boundary. With this, the fishermen were forced to fish in a much lesser area. Therefore, in order to earn a livelihood, fishermen from both sides occasionally cross the IMBL, and then they are arrested by the navy of both countries. With the advancement of technology, new kind of boat known as the trawlers were invented. They have the advantage of going in depth as far as the seabed and scraping of the seaweed. Here we can see the working mechanism of the trawlers. This results in greater profits for the fishermen, but it is harmful for the marine life. Also, when the Indian side increases their trawling, then it further reduces the population of fish and is in turn forcing the Sri Lankan fishermen to cover more areas by crossing the IMBL in order to get a good catch. Then there is this dispute regarding the islet of Kachatevu. When IMBL was demarcated, this islet fell on the Sri Lankan sides, but this islet has been used by Indian fishermen to dry their nets and so on, and as this island is uninhabited. So far, So as per the agreement, the islet will remain a part of Sri Lanka, but Indian fishermen did have fishing rights along with pilgrimage rights. But the Indian state of Tamil Nadu argues that historically the islet has been a part of Tamil Nadu and it should be so. These issues hasn't been resolved, but both countries can engage in dialogues and come up with a solution. The Indian side can decommission the use of trawlers. The fishermen from both sides should be empowered, and diversification of livelihood options should be made available for them. This will further reduce their complete dependency on fishing and the problems which is being faced in this region. The next area to be discussed is the Chinese influence in this region. Recently, Sri Lanka signed the Hambantota Port Concession Agreement, and with this agreement, the Sri Lankan government handed over the port and 15,000 acres of land around it for a 99-year lease. This is a classic example of the Chinese debt trap. Along with Hambantota, China had taken up other initiatives in Sri Lanka. China had taken up the work of cricket stadiums, Matala International Airport, highways, hotels, etc. However, the final agreement bars foreign countries from using the port for military purposes, unless granted permission by the government of Colombo. Last year, Sri Lanka unveiled South Asia's tallest tower, known as the Lotus Tower. This too has been funded by China under the controversial Belt and Road Initiative. This tower is expected to function as Sri Lanka's digital TV tower and is built with fiber optic cables and is fully equipped with necessary telecommunication equipment. Last year also saw the completion of Colombo's port city, and this causes worries because China is gaining an overbearing foothold in the Sri Lankan capital. Unlike the Hambantota port, China is directly investing in the Colombo port city, and this is Sri Lanka's most valuable strategic asset as it is figuring in the top 35 busiest ports in the world. Sri Lanka, on the other hand, should also see to it that these projects does not result in any action which will be detrimental to its sovereignty. These are the influences of China in this region. India, on the other hand, have also backed various projects in Sri Lanka, but none with the grandeur of China. India over time have helped in the restoration of Sri Lanka's northern Kankesanturai harbour. 3 years after the ending of civil war, Government of India signed a memorandum of understanding with the Sri Lankan government to build about 50,000 permanent homes for war-affected people. India also built a 500 megawatt thermal power project at Sampur. India assisted in the building of nearly 400-kilometer long Jaffna-Colombo railway line. But these were done by India in much earlier period, and now India must look forward to other ways of measures to curb the Chinese influence in the area. India can do so by reviving the Setu Samudram shipping canal project. This project aims to build a shipping route in the shallow straits between India and Sri Lanka. The 44.9 nautical mile long canal would bypass ships navigating Sri Lankan southern ports, opening up a shorter, continuously navigable sea route around the Indian peninsula. But this channel would be passing through the limestone shores of Ramasetu, and thus it is opposed by some groups on the grounds of religious, environmental, and economical problems. The most recent plan is to dig the channel roughly in the middle of the straits to provide the shortest course, and the course requires least maintenance. At present, the project nature has evolved to be a geopolitical and security concern of Chinese influence in India's southern shores. As the country is facing ongoing tensions with China in its northern borders, it would be advisable to see through this project in order to protect the southern borders. Now let us briefly focus on some other issues at hand. The Citizenship Amendment Act, which was passed in India, and the Act questions the role of Sri Lankan refugees. Refugees from Sri Lanka can be divided into two, the ones who came before and after 1983.
Ms. Gopika, could just conclude, please?
Yes, ma'am. The ones who came before accounted in Sirimavo Shastri Pact. Then there have been temporary camps built at Tamil Nadu for the refugees. For India, there is no term as refugees, but it is illegal immigrants. And there are around 1 lakh illegal immigrants in Tamil Nadu. They expect citizenship in India, but they have been left out in the Citizenship Amendment Act. These people are unable to go anywhere else, and there is no process in India to give citizenship to Tamil refugees. Then we shall move on to discuss the Easter attacks. Last year, Sri Lanka became home to the largest ISIS-inspired terror attack in the world. 9 terrorists attacked churches, hotels, and other sites, killing more than 250 people. This incident further focused on increasing counter-terrorism measures. Speaking of the present scenario, India and Sri Lanka, along with the whole world, is battling the COVID pandemic. During this time, the Sri Lankan government conducted elections and Mahinda Rajapakse became victorious. Sri Lanka have had total cases of 3,360 and only 13 deaths. They were able to curb effectively the community spread of this virus. Looking forward, we realize that India and Sri Lanka have many things in common. India should not take a role of an elder brother and should help Sri Lanka in its development by valuing and respecting its sovereignty. The neighborhood first policy of India will go forward in making better ties with India and Sri Lanka. And also the failure of regional unity in SAARC should be complemented by increasing the bilateral relations amongst the nations. That's all my talk. With this ends my presentation. Thank you so much.
Gopika, thank you so much. Really memorable presentation, I can say. You did really well. Kindly keep it up. I'm sure you'll be proved to be a good researcher and asset for the AIAS. Thank you so much. Now, the next is Dr. Dorji, lecturer, Royal University of Bhutan. Dorji, you are welcome now.
As I cannot, okay. Can you hear me, Chair?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Chair, moderator, panelists. Through greetings from Sherabzu College, Royal University of Bhutan. Today, I'm going to speak on the topic, revisit of SAARC Charter. So, as many of you are aware, in regard to, or in the context to South Asia Association for Regional Cooperation as regional organization, which was established on December 8, 1985, consisting of 7 members. Later in 2007, Afghanistan joined as a new member in the regional grouping of South Asia. And then if you look at the objective of SAARC Charter, it aims to promote and strengthen regional organization, economic integration among the member states. However, South Asia today is among the most unstable region in the world, riddled by both intra and interstate conflict. And at present, the frequent cancellation of SAARC summit forbid the leaders of South Asia to meet and interact directly to resolve the bilateral issues. And as a result, the regional organization or regional body shifting her choices to sub-regional grouping like BBI from SAARC and like BIMSTEC. So SAARC, since its inception in 1985, has held only 18 summits in the last 3 decades. And we know that the prevailing political problem and bilateral dispute have mainly caused the delays. And there is also a comprehensive technical analysis of the trade conflict relation within the region and explore how South Asia demonstrates underperformance of its potential of economic integration, and is also a problem which has hindered it from finding places in the documented history. Therefore, this pieces of my paper or my study would not only be a source of information, but it would also be a reminder to the present generation and as well as future generation about importance of such summit. So thus, my paper will explore the reasons for the cancellation of summit and explain the limitation caused by Article 10 in the SAARC Charter. So among various research methods, this study, my study employed or deployed a qualitative method as a main goal of this research was to explore, describe and interpret the failures of SAARC summit using secondary data to fulfill the aims and objectives of my paper. So if we look at the discussion or the analysis on SAARC as a regional organization, so as I told you earlier that SAARC as a regional organization was instituted in 1985. Since then, only 18 summits have been held. That is, 10 in the first 15 years from 1986 to 2000 and 8 in the next 15 years, 2001 to 2006. However, the trend of cancelling the summit over the last 14 to 15 years, that is from 1989, 1992, 94, 96, 99, 2000, 2001, 3, 6, 9, 12, 13, 15, and 16 is worrisome if you look at the trend. And it explains the credibility and the complacent nature of regional organization failing the mandate of SARC Charter. Significantly, the causation of failure to host the summit have been due to bilateral dispute and contentious issues and political problem among the member states. If you look at the reasons and if you look at the variables or the causation, then history is important. So let us look from the historical lenses. So historically, both India and Sri Lanka have been under the imperialist rule of British. And although India and Sri Lanka shares border in the region, both the country went through three phases of turmoil between Sinhalese ethnic majority and Tamil-speaking minority in 1983 at Jaffna, Sri Lanka. So during the first phase, which lasted until July 1987, New Delhi tried to resolve the growing civil unrest by mediating between the Sri Lankan government, the Ceylon government of President Jayawardena, and the Tamil separatists who were gaining increasing control over Tamil-dominated area in northern part of Ireland. And secondly, in 1987, in July 1987, signed Indo-Sri Lankan Peace Accord, which allowed Indian peacekeeping force in Sri Lanka. And under the terms of agreement, the Indian Army was charged with guaranteeing and enforcing the cessation of hostiles in Sri Lanka, while the Indian government pledged to take all necessary steps to ensure that Indian territory is not used for activities prejudicial to the unity, integrity, and security of Sri Lanka. So consequently, in 1989, India agreed to withdraw the Indian peacekeeping force from Ceylon. So in the light of this evidence, the involvement of India into domestic politics of Ceylon failed to build mutual trust, bringing together their political leadership and government machineries. This event is one of the reasons that led to the cancellation of SARC summit in 1989 and 1990. And if you look at the Maldives, so Maldives, as we are aware, that is an archipelagic nation situated in the middle of the Indian Ocean. So after independence from Britain in 1965, the Maldives ties or relationships with India had greatly been stable. And the strategic location of Maldives, straddling important of slots and its proximity to Diego Garcia, where the US Central Command base is positioned, has around the interests of important world order, including India. So in 1988, a coup d'etat against the President Abdul Gayoom witnessed the involvement of Sri Lankan Tamil militant in the Maldives to secure power of Abdullah Lutfi, which was reflected in the Economics 1988. Meanwhile, India saved Maldives from coup. So however, President Gayoom did not give any special privileges to India. In the later part of his regime, President Gayoom tried to play China against India as a democratic movement started to gather momentum. So President Gayoom probably feared that democratic India may not support him as strongly in the face of democratic upsurge in his own country. As a result, insecurity prompted the Maldives started relying increasing on China to maintain BOP, balance of power, against India. This event hindered the hosting of the summit of 1988 and 1990. Now, the 7th SARC summit, which was scheduled in Dhaka in 1992, was delayed due to Indo-Bangladesh strained relations and tense regional environment. Both the countries engaged in domestic politics, weakening the bilateral ties in the region. And the summit was postponed when the Indian Prime Minister Narasimha Rao refused to attend The following a strong reaction in Bangladesh, including demonstration and eruption of communal violence over the demolition of historic barbaric mosques, Barbary mosques in Uttar Pradesh in India by extremists. So it was the first occasion on India refusal to attend summit, which gave SAARC a process of a severe blow. The root cause of problem also existed within India domestic politics, which was being increasingly polluted due to growing extremism, communal violence, religious outbursts that threatened the lives, property of minority and their sacred places, spreading fear and anger throughout the region. More so in Bangladesh, the Dhaka summit was deferred, and after a delay of about 5 months, Dhaka summit was held from April 10 to 11 in 1993. Moreover, in February 2005, India refused to attend the 13th summit, which was scheduled in Dhaka, to pressurize Bangladesh. Initially, India announced that it could not attend the summit due to prevailing security situation and political condition in its neighborhood, Bangladesh and Nepal respectively. So now we can look at what were and how and what were the variables or the factor which paused the momentum to host South Summit. Interestingly, if you look at the 8th summit, the deferred deadline is due to strained ties between India and Pakistan. So the delay of SAARC summit in 1994 is due to Kashmir-centric issues such as Pakistan concern over the grave, massive human rights violation by the occupied forces in the Indian-held Kashmir, and both the countries engaged in a blame game on each other, and Pakistan of sponsoring militancy and Indian refusal to include the Kashmir contentious issues in the bilateral talks. So the dialogue was suspended for 7 years from 1990 to 1997. And the second decade in 1996 to 2005 of SAARC summit was delayed and suffered due to India-Pakistan relation and national issues in the host countries. So Pakistan wanted to host the summit in April 2013. However, Pakistan announced a postponement. So India accused Islamabad for sabotaging the event. Finally, after a year's delay, the Islamabad summit was held from January 4 to 6 in 2004. And the organization suffered due to internal weakness and domestic problem in the third decade. So no summit was scheduled in 2006. Rather, the association decided to convene the 14th summit in India in 2007, marking only summit that was held as planned. And the 15th summit was to be held in Maldives, which later expressed its inability to organize due to upcoming general election in 2008. Then Sri Lanka volunteered to host the event that coincided with the 16th independence anniversary. And the Colombo summit held in 2008 agreed to convene the next moot in the Maldives in September 2009, which the Maldives again declined due to ongoing economic recession. So on Bhutanese request, the venue of the summit was shifted to Thimphu, where it was held in 2010. So finally, Maldives agreed to host the 17th summit in the Maldives in 2011, and subsequently 18th summit was held in Nepal after being deferred for 2 years in 2014. So during the 19th summit, which was scheduled in Pakistan, due to New Delhi's decision in the aftermath of the attack by militants on an Indian army camp in Uri, India, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan decided not to attend the summit. So now we can check. So we can check the variables. We can check the contentious issues. We can check and validate the causation to halt or to pause the momentum or the process of SAARC summit. So to conclude, SAARC, since its inception, had held only 18 summits. And many summits
now please wind up your paper. Now you have taken enough time. Only 2 minutes for you. That's all.
Cancelled due to bilateral dispute and contentious issues and political problem. And the paradoxical nature of member states engaged in the creation of sub-regional grouping in the region has also hindered the summit. India and Pakistan play a key role in the regional organization. However, both countries have undermined the summit process, As a result, the only hope for a smaller state in South Asia is to await the improvement in India-Pakistan ties in the region. In future, SAARC will face new challenges with China and US diplomacy trade while maintaining the presence in the region. Given those constraints, now SAARC will have to revisit the structural problems of SAARC Charter Article 10. Decision at all levels shall be based on unanimity, and bilateral contention issues shall be excluded from deliberation, as the unanimity section of the article empowers the freedom to any member state to franchise any proposal in the region. Consequently, there is no platform among the member states to resolve the differences in the region. Accordingly, process prohibit bilateral and contentious issues to be deliberated in a summit, which further creates a gap to resolve the issues. Thus, the rectification of SAARC Charter Article 10 provides an opportunity to move SAARC, a regional body, to new height. However, pragmatism among the leaders in this country raises a question of viable or not in a region. Thank you. Thank you.
Dr.
This is the end of my presentation.
Dr. Dorji, your presentation is really thought-provoking. I'm happy that you have tasted the history and why the pinpointing the main reason, like the conflict occurred between the SAARC nations, number of bilateral issues. Though if you see the SAARC Charter, it has been clearly laid down that no bilateral issue would be raised at any summit. But again and again, Pakistan raised a number of times. Recently, at the SAARC Foreign Minister Conference, Pakistan raised the issue, and our Foreign Minister left the summit, left the meeting. It's a really SAARC. It seems now a white elephant, nothing else. Thank you so much. Now the next participant is, if I'm not wrong, Miss Garima. She is to speak on Indo-Bangladesh relations. Miss Garima, you are welcome.
So I guess that she's not here as of now.
Garima, start your presentation.
So she's not there in the meeting as of now. Please proceed to the next speaker so that we can connect with her in the meantime.
The next speaker is Mr. Mok from Japan. Enhancing Indo-Pak relations through climate action activities. Mr. Mok from Japan, are you there in the meeting?
So he's not there as well.
Sir, I'm trying to connect with him. Please to the next presenter.
Next, okay. Sujit Datta, Associate Professor, University of Chittagong, Bangladesh. Kindly start speaking. You're making your presentation.
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are.
My screen is visible, sir?
Yes, yes, visible.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you, Professor. Firstly, let me thank the organizer, as Nice Nepal and Noli Foundation, for inviting me here. And thank to professors and my co-panelists who are the renowned in their academic field. So, in my case, my presentation slide was the transformation of Sino-Indian relations in South Asia, a post-COVID assessment. And I'm Dr. Sujit Datto, Associate Professor of Chittagong University, Bangladesh. And this is my presentation outlines. And in case of introductions, I'm just saying South Asia is an arena rather than a region. And India is the largest and most powerful country in South Asia, which wants to lead the South Asia regions. But some South Asian countries wants to make good relations with China for their economic and security cooperation. For that reasons, there is unofficial conflict, cooperation, as well as competition between China and India in the context of South Asian politics. China and India main influence over South Asia are in the areas of trade, finance, military, cooperations, and soft power, etc. Another important thing is strategic hold over South Asia and Indian Ocean region. My research background is the two important Asian giants still have challenging aspects of their bilateral relationships. Additionally, extra-hegemonic perceptions of India in South Asia is a challenge for China to contain these kinds of hegemonic attitudes. For these reasons, South Asian small countries have maintained a decent relationship with China. In the context of South Asian politics, India neighboring countries understood that peace and progress are the main features of 21st century's diplomatic visions. On the other hand, China wants to continue a close relationship with its neighbors to develop regional integrations. China will focus its peace and development activities with South Asian countries like Latin America and African regions to increase the spaces and partnerships and make it additional productivity. By research significant, the main significance of lack of economic capabilities of Indian governments. The most important perspective of China to South Asia is traditional and non-traditional security dimensions. Indian attitudes towards South Asian countries as well as China to ensure Chinese investment in South Asia, to ensure Chinese maritime security by China's strings of pearl strategy. These are my research significance. And the purpose of this research, there are three purposes mainly. The first one, to explain how and why Sino-Indian relationship have been transformed, featuring the mixture of competition and cooperations in South Asian context. Second one is to propose the policy-oriented ideas in order to suggest how geopolitical rivalries between China and India in that region can manage change. And finally, to identify the specific factor to transform the Sino-Indian relationship in South Asia. By research hypothesis, there are two hypotheses. First one, Sino-Indian transformative relationship in South Asia are mixed with cooperation and competition in many areas. Hypothesis 2, Indian dominant control in South Asia and Indian Ocean regions has been hampering its relations with China. So the argument of my research, there are three perspectives. One is Sino-Indian relations, one is border disputes, another is regional geography, and third is more important is economic development. Especially border disputes and regional geography makes some perceptions, competitions, and security dilemma. On the other case, economic development, this makes some cooperation and interdependence. And this kind of misperceptions, competition, and security dilemma and cooperations make some pragmatic competitions between the two countries in the South Asian context. So my research questions, I have one specific research questions. These are this is the what factors have contributed to transform Sino-Indian relationship in South Asia. So I want to try my best to identify the main factors which may transform the Sino-Indian relationship in South Asian politics. So I try to analyze the factors to transform the Sino-Indian relationship in South Asia. The first one is historical legacy. The China and India share a number of similarities like its geography, nature, and common anti-colonial sentiment. The second one is economy. Economy has been the main driving force to transform Sino-Indian relationship in South Asian context. Soft power. The concept of using soft power has been known to China and India since ancient history and dates back to their philosopher strategists Lao Tzu and Kautilya respectively. Indian nuclear test 1988. In May 1998, India conducted 5 nuclear tests, which is one of the most important factors to transform Sino-Indian relationship in South Asia. The Klum standoff 2017. On 16th June 2017, Chinese troops with construction vehicles and route building equipment began extending an existing route southward in Duklampetu. So that was another important factor to transform Sino-Indian relationship in South Asian politics. And Ladakh crisis 2020, thousands of Chinese troops from the two Asian giants, China and India, have been locked in the eyeball-to-eyeball confrontations, particularly in the Ladakh region, since last April to still now. So Ladakh crisis is one of the most important factors to transform Sino-Indian relationship in the South Asian politics. Vaccine diplomacy. Vaccine diplomacy is one of the most important factors in the post-COVID area, because as many countries and companies are racing to develop vaccines to stop the COVID-19 pandemic. So China already developed the vaccines. India is trying to develop with the help of the Oxford and other cases. So after the post-COVID assessment, Sino-Indian relations in South Asian case, vaccine diplomacy will be one of the main factors. Belt and Road Initiative, and especially on the CPEC. So India didn't sign the Belt and Road Initiative, but other South Asian countries already signed to the Belt and Road Initiative. But India didn't sign because of the CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. And leadership quality is one of the most important factors, because we know now the present Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping is trying to develop their relations in the case of South Asian politics. And great power impacts, especially US and Russia, are the key factor to transform the Sino-Indian relationship in the South Asia. So if I try to stages of Sino-Indian transformation relations in South Asia from the starting point to present. So the starting point, we know the Sino-Indian diplomatic relations started in 1950, and up to 62, the relation was the good. But when starting the frozen period, the 62 to 82, when the India and China's war in 62, and India defeated this war. So that time the relations of China-India was frozen, and up to 1988. When the 1988, the recovery period is 1988 to 1998. So recovery is starting from the former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi's visit to China. And the Cold War period is 1998 to 2003, is when the Indian conducted 5 nuclear tests in 1988. Then the relations with the Sino-Indian began to the very bad. The escalation period starts from the 2003 to 2017, and the former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee again turned his period to visit the China in 2003, and that time for the escalation of Sino-Indian relations up to 2017, the competitive period is 2017 to 2020, because only for the Doklam standoff, Ladakh crisis, and other crises, there are some competitions and some complex areas in last 3 years. So these areas are just divided in the 6 sessions, the Indians' relations with China in the case of South Asian politics. So in the case, my analysis is, in my variables, I have 2 variables. One is independent and another is dependent variables. In my independent variables is the factor to transform the Sino-Indian relations. And my dependent variable is Sino-Indian transformed relations in South Asia and Sino-Indian economic and strategic cooperation and competition in South Asia. So if I see the factors, the independent variables are history, economy, soft war, nuclear tests, Doklam crisis, Ladakh, great power involvement. In the other case, when we see the competition and cooperation, we see the competition area, Indian Oceans, seaports, investment, strategic allied over the South Asia, soft power, energy sectors. In the cooperations, there are trade and investment, security, science and technology, disaster management, tourism, anti-terrorism, BCIM, SARC, SCO, and climate change activities. But these kinds of effects are make the transformation of Sino-Indian relationship in case of South Asian politics. So the test of my hypothesis with the Sino-Indian transformation relationships in South Asia. I see there are some cooperation area in the many fields in the case of Sino-Indian relations South Asia. The main factors of Sino-Indian relationships are to transform Sino-Indian relations of the legacy, historical legacy, economics, Indian nuclear test, Rajiv Gandhi's visit in 1988, Ladakh crisis still now. So the area competitions are regional case in the trade, military cooperation in other states. And both countries still maintain the Panchashila or 5 principles of peaceful coexistence. And on the other important things is China card. South Asian small countries, especially Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, Maldives, even Sri Lanka, always showing the China card to maintain to balance the Sino-Indian relationship in South Asian case. And Rohingya crisis is one of the most important factor in the case. You know, Bangladesh already more than 10 lakhs Rohingyas in Bangladesh are living here. So in the case of Rohingya crisis, China and India are maintaining very balancing policy towards the Bangladesh. So both countries are maintaining balanced, challenging and strategic policy. So this is one of the important factors to transform the Sino-Indian relationship in the South Asian case. The future challenging in Sino-Indian relationship in South Asia. So still now, political consensus has not yet been translated into political reality. The political and economic and trade investment still has been expressed. The people-to-people connection is so weak, and third-party issues, especially in the major power actors, especially US and Russian factors and historical legacy, continue to interfere with the relations between the two countries during this period. So, and some policy recommendations for the Sino-Indian transformation in South Asia. China and India should solve the boundary issues and take Sino-Indian relationship in the new heights. So most of the crises of China and India are related with the boundary issues. So at first, China and India should solve the boundary related issues and eliminate the negative factors from third party by remaining strategically determined. So in the case of Sino-Indian relationship, so when we focusing India-US relations or China-Russian relations, this type of third-party factors may impact the negative impact in Sino-Indian relationship in South Asian case. China and India need to transform their financial models with international trade policy. So China and India can maintain transform their financial model to each other's, to each the South Asian case. This may be increase the South Asian states and economic development. And China and India must express their misperception and mistakes on their strategically involved in South Asia. So there are some misperceptions and mistakes which taken by China and India. So China and India should express their misperceptions. So must be there resolve this kind of misperceptions and mistakes to improve their relations in the case of South Asian context. Both leaders of the two states ought to have to the foresight to operations outside of the safety prisons. And China and India should realize their own mutual interest and benefit and the endless trade in South Asian countries, which unevenly is still now insufficient. And both of the Sino-Indian relations. So China and South Asian relations, there is trade balance, not trade balance. India and the other South Asian countries, there is no trade balance. So it need to for the economic development, to develop the Sino-Indian relations South Asian case, China and India should balance their trade volume to the South Asian countries. So in my final stage, I want to conclude my own summaries. The Sino-Indian transformative relationship South Asia equal to competition plus cooperation minus confrontations. So the buzzword like competitive cooperation and competitive plus cooperation between China and India are away from ground reality. So I will conclude my sessions with two quotes from the President Xi Jinping and the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. President Xi Jinping told Chinese dragon and Indian elephant should join each other in a duet, not a duel. And Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi told, when India and China work together, 1 + 1 is not 2, but 11. Thank you, Professor. Thank you all.
Dr. Datta, thank you very much for your presentation. I have a number of suggestions to you. You have raised so many questions in such a short time. My advice you to please confine to one or two specific research questions, and not so many. And you try to collect data from some primary sources. And though your presentation is quite encouraging, and I must congratulate you. Thank you so much.
Sir, thank you.
Next presenter is Mr. Gaurav Mishra.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, yes.
And am I hope I am visible also.
Yes, yes, you are visible.
Okay, so first of all, great day is here, and my name is Gaurav Mishra. I'm basically a research scholar of Banaras Hindu University, and currently doctoral fellow at Indian Council of Social Science Research. And I'm also working with a very close direction with the South Asian politics. So my point, and today, first of all, let me congratulate the Amity School of International Studies, the Mulia Foundation, and NICCE for conducting a very I must say that a remarkable and much needed discussion at this hour, because everyone is looking towards the think tanks and the various institutions which are responsible for the post-COVID approach of the international politics. So I would like to start my deliberation, my research area where I am going to hit.
No. Please, what's your topic?
So my topic is border disputes in South Asia.
Border disputes in South Asia. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So I'm just, yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So, sir, the first of all, I just want to start the point is that in the very recent time, we have seen that how India and China have come together on a point where we just saw that they have just completed a sort of a discussion with each other, but put their armed forces in front of each other. So creating this kind of a thing in international relation, we call it realism. As Hans J. Morgenthau has said, that everything in this international politics is all about the struggle of power. And the way India and China in South Asia especially, I'm not mentioning Nepal right now, because right now we are having a serious discussion in the country. A common mass is also looking forward for people like you and me, especially people like those who are sitting on the chair right now, that what is going to be India's approach. So we can see the burning issue right now is that how the people have of India and China after dialogues, and we are still in a position of a war right now. And we can see that China made it very clear in its policies that in April and May 2020, that whether it is Chumar, whether it is Depsang, or whether it is Pangong, everywhere we can see its intrusion. So India as a nation, we have not seen this kind of stuff by India earlier. We were in a position of cooperation. We were in a position of, requesting the things. But right now we can see an aggressive mode of Indian foreign policy. I must say, and I must name Narendra Modi, the Honorable Prime Minister of India, who has made its stance very clear that in this region, we will know that earlier China was the leading guy, or we can say that the leading power. But now India is showing its real time. You can say the agony that India is having. That we are also the key player in this region also. I'm also saying that at the same time there are border disputes and everywhere in the world. But like 24 hours before, we saw that Armenia and Azerbaijan had a border dispute also. So the border issue in all over the world, all over the world, the border issue is still a major and a very relevant concern. But since India and China have attempted a lot of talks, a lot of things to just cool down the things and organize a kind of a discussion, like we are having a discussion in academic level. There are diplomats talking also, but there has been a little movement since the mid 2000. When I say, then there is a sort of we can say a feeling of nationalism that we see in India and China, that every time when this issue comes in the border dispute in South Asia, we see China clearly wants to continue using LAC to manipulate in India's policy. I must add in my deliberation that India should equally be empowered to prevent China from doing it so. Prime Minister Modi has a very clear view on that. He wanted in 2014, he wanted in 2015. Every time he said that whenever or whatever the consequences are, we are ready for it. But if you will conquer our borders, it would be a threat to us, and we will lead to war. I'm not saying that the war is coming, but I can see that if the things are, if the policy makers, if the think tanks like we are seeing that, and the bigger institutes like JNU, like Banas Hind University and Amity also, if we will not provide solid inputs, it would be a nasty blow to the national security of India. Now, moving forward, I must say that Indian authorities have set their parameters. Now I can see that as Jaishankar, we had a deal, and we went and talked with them. On that particular note, we have signed some of the documents. So I'm just saying that when Balakot happened, the question, sir, I would like to ask with the chair also in my deliberation, that when Balakot happened, we saw that a resolution was passed by Japan, which is quite not a very neighborhood to us. But why not this sort of a resolution was passed by the very close neighboring countries like, I must not say, but why it was not passed by Bangladesh, why it was not passed by Nepal or Sri Lanka? Because what I feel like, we still have some of the border disputes with them. Somehow we have a feeling of that they are not a very good friend, a good friend of mine, or they are not in our lobby, I must say. So one country like Japan passes a resolution, and they just you can say offer and symbolizes that they are against any sort of this activity. What we saw that Abhinandan got arrested and beaten by the Pakistani soldiers and all. But I must say that international relations and South Asia is going to be a big playground for the international players as well. In the recent cases of India and China border dispute, what I feel and what I research is that it was a warning for India. Basically, it was a warning for India from China that if you are going to align with the multiple forces of this world, we are going to, going to disturb you, or we are going to somehow disturb your territorial disputed with, which is, coming from a very long past. Like Nepal, we have seen that in that case of border dispute, we are still having disputes with Nepal. And Nepal, as we know that there are multiple times when Nepal has declared many things with India, but in the recent era, what I feel like, I mean, according to me, it's my feeling that China wants more and more ruling of the current government of PM KP Oli. So they want more and more KP Oli so that they can continue with their the fierce attitude that China has right now towards India, towards the entire. We have seen the border disputes with Hong Kong also, where Hong Kong want that 47 years of their liberation. They want to, they are still in the making of a democracy. They are still in the making of.
Mr. Mishra, bit slow. Please slow.
Okay, sir. I beg your pardon, sir. I beg your pardon. So what I want to say is, sir, that a border dispute in South Asia or border dispute with the particular nation like India and China, it is going to create a kind of the scholars like me and the scholars like many others, we are still sometimes think that why from 1961 to still 2020, why we are not in a position to say that this is our border. I mean, you just mind your own business, and this is India's territory, and we won't want any kind of a you can say the intrusion or any kind of a extra attitude towards the border issues. And also, sir, being a scholar of international relation, I must ask a question that every time when we listen that India promises but China delivers, India promises but China delivers, when as a country, when as a nation, we would be able to change this particular slogan. How can we change this slogan that India promises and India only delivers? Every time when I go through the research articles or the various border dispute issues, I see that there is an infrastructure war going on in Nepal. And every time when there is an infrastructure war is going on, China, I must not say, but China has an upper hand in it. So when as a country, from the Indian perspective I'm talking about, when I see Nepal or when I see China, I must see people who have worked tremendously for the Indian foreign policy from Indian perspective. I mean, it's my appeal to all the research scholars like me and all, that when we talk about Nepal or when we talk about any border issues or something, we must think and think towards the side of India, that how it going to benefit our country and how it going to solve these all issues. I mean,
No,
I
no,
don't
no.
want.
I don't agree with you. We are to make the objective assessment. It looks you have become so emotional.
No,
Please.
okay, sir. Okay, sir. No, I'm just saying, sir, that being a scholar of international relation, I mean, it is our responsibility to sometime solve the issues also. I mean, what are the, I mean, as you have said, sir, I mean, I respect your opinion, sir, but I want to ask you, I mean, you are the chair. I would like to ask you, sir, that how and when we are going to give a platform for the coming generation, so that there will be a kind of a no border issues, so that the people can travel, and the culture can travel, and people can learn from each other, and there will be a very smooth and a very perfect scenario for all the scholars. I don't want any, I mean, I don't know, sir, whether I'm getting emotional or not, but I don't want any, I mean, we can say that world peace, when we talk about world peace. So this is also in my mind, sir, when I talk about the border disputes in South Asia, sir.
Okay, please wind up your.
Yes, sir. Last thing I just want to add here, that being a citizen of India, being a scholar of India, I am looking forward for some solid solution. I'm looking forward for some issues. I want to raise a particular question, that when as a country we are going to change that. I have said already, the situation where India promises, India delivers, and in South Asia, if there are border issues and disputes, what would be the easiest and a very state-friendly option to solve the issues? Thanks to the chair and thanks to the MIT Institute of International Studies. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mishra. First, you have to define your topic. It's so complex and, to my mind, without any
Sure, sir.
meaning. Kindly change the title and consult more sources.
Okay, sir. Sure.
I appreciate you become too emotional without any, you can say, argument. Though I appreciate you are a research scholar, but you are a long way to go. My
Sure,
suggestion
sir.
is, yes, thank you so much. Now,
Well,
I invite
thank you, sir.
Madam Bhavna Sharma, our discussion for today. She will give a brief summary and moderate everything, and then you are free to ask questions. Bhavna Sharma.
Thank you, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Thank you, AISS. Thank you, Dr. Bindra. Thank you, Dr. Nagalakshmi. I would like to start by the first presenter, Ms. Nancy Puri. And she started her presentation by introducing the problems of South Asia. She analyzed the situation of COVID-19 in South Asian region, the impact it has made in lockdown scenario in India, specifically in Pakistan in general. She gave statistics of countries in the South Asian region and gave a comparative analysis of the situation of COVID-19 in the South Asian region. Uh, Ms. Nancy's presentation was basically trying to underline the issues of lack of resources in the South Asian region. She presented the situation of COVID-19 in the countries of like Pakistan and Bangladesh and how they are responding towards this kind of a problems, and especially the government's effort in terms of the pandemic. She also kind of argued that the countries of South Asia have reached on the third stage of coronavirus, that is community spread. She also highlighted the lack of medical practitioners in this region and also dooming economy of the region. Then Miss Gopika, PG student, she was presenting on India-Sri Lanka relation. Miss Gopika highlighted the Indo-Sri Lankan relations from the history of Ramayana period to the shared colonial past. She analyzed the ethnic composition of Sri Lanka and how it is converted. Okay. Sorry for the interruption. So, and how it converted into the conflict. She underlined the issues of conflict starting from 1956, in which she discussed the role of India in Sri Lankan civil war. Her presentation dealt with the mistakes committed by the on the Indian part, and the brutal crushing of Litte by the Sri Lankan government, and meanwhile the human rights violation by the Sri Lankan government. She discussed 13th Amendment Act and how it impacted Indo-Sri Lanka relations. She elaborated on the issues of fishermen between India and Sri Lanka and the effort that are made to resolve these issues. She highlighted the growing tension in Indian Ocean and how China is trying to trying to use the land of Sri Lanka for its own interest. She also discussed the issue of Setu Samudram and other issues like Article 370, immigrants, Easter attack, and COVID battle, etc. After that, Dr. Dorji from the Royal University of Bhutan started his presentation by introducing the SARC and the objectives. He underlined the issue as to why South Asian region or the South Asian countries are they are still switching to the sub-regional setups rather than the regional organization of SARC. And SARC seems to be a non-working due to the bilateral disputes between the India and the Pakistan. He tried to find out the hurdles in the making of SARC as a working regional organization. He analyzed the historical issues between member states. He identified the lack of mutual trust is the reason for the cancellation of SARC summits, and how China is playing a role in terms of weakening the relations between India and other SARC member states. He identified the various reasons for cancellations of these summits, and the bilateral issues, of course, between the India and Pakistan eventually impact the SARC. And not only the SARC summits, but also the growth of organization. He believes that the only hope for SARC is based on the Indo-Pak bilateral relations, and the role of China is going to portray a lot of challenges in the future of the organization. After that, Mr. Sujit Datta from the University of Chittagong presented on the transforming of Indo-China relationship in South Asia post-COVID assessment. And Professor Datta dealt with the bilateral relations of India and China and analyzed the struggle of hegemony between India and China. He analyzed the issues between India and China and how they can transform. He analyzed the border disputes, security dilemma, regional geography, and analyzed those factors in terms of transforming the Sino-India relationship. He lists out certain similarities between India and China, and he underlined the efforts made by the leadership of in terms of transforming Indo-China relationship historically. Uh, Professor Datta tested his hypothesis and analyzed the foreign policy of India and China towards the Rohingya crisis, and based on that, he predict the future challenges in front of Indo-China relationship. In the last, Mr. Gaurav Mishra, research scholar from VIJIGISHU, presented his ideas on border disputes in the South Asia. He started his presentation by focusing on the disputes of India, China, Nepal, border issues. He discussed the challenges of foreign policy. He highlighted the rise of nationalism and the efforts made by the Prime Minister Modi to deal with this kind of border issues. He gave examples of border disputes with the other countries and how India is dealing with challenges. He also gave examples of Hong Kong and China issue. In the end, he suggested the aggressive policy for India. He also asked a question to when India will be able to overcome the challenges of infrastructure and how these issues will be able to solve. That's my summary to this session. Professor Bindra. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Bhavna. Really a good job you have done. Now I invite participants to raise your questions.
There are few questions.
Bhavna ma'am, just a second. This is Dr. Divya. Thank you so very much. And we had a really wonderful session. Just a correction, which is even for the future and further anchors for the other sections. It is Professor Dr. Nagalakshmi M. Raman. It's not Dr. Nagalakshmi M. Raman. So this correction needs to be incorporated. So this is what I wanted to say. Thank you. Sorry. Continue.
Bhavna, you did an excellent job. Excellent. I really appreciate it, and you have really summarized very, very well. And it was as though that, it was as though that you had been a co-chair of this session. It was excellent, excellent work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Keep it up.
Now your participants are invited to ask questions. If they have sent questions, now Bhavna, please read it out.
Okay. Am I going to read or Dr. Divya?
You read the questions.
Okay.
Questions are in the chat box.
In the chat box?
The same Zoom app, sir, in the chat box. I'm sure Bhavna would be finding it.
Bhavna, dekho bhai.
I'm finding it.
Fine.
Okay. There is a question to Miss Nancy and also to Miss Gopika. The question is by Mr. Rafi Sheikh. How can India increase its influence among the South Asian nations in the COVID-19 pandemic? Miss Nancy? Miss Nancy, are you there?
Hello.
Yes.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. So even in my presentation, I have discussed with this issue that how India can increase its influence among the South Asian nations in COVID-19. So again, I can go through with this as, for example, governments are attempting to coordinate a response to the pandemic throughout the regional organization, that is SAARC. Even our Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi proposed a joint emergency fund to tackle the pandemic and pledged to seed $10 million. Even beyond this multilateral forum, India has offered crisis response assistance to South Asian countries. It has conducted operations to evacuate nationals overseas from Bangladesh, Maldives, even from Sri Lanka also, and from Nepal also, that using a combination of Indian Air Force and commercial aircraft that India has helped the South Asian countries. Even if I discuss even in Maldives, India has also mobilized military relief set up a laboratory for testing COVID-19 patients. So there are numerous provisions or measures that India has adopted to help and support its neighboring countries. Even if I say that India had also delivered medicines to South Asian countries,
Please,
example,
only 2 minutes. Only 2 minutes are allotted to every one to answer the questions. Not
okay.
please. Ah.
Okay, okay. So even this is a last point. Thank you. India had also delivered medicines to South Asian countries. Example, hydrochloroquine. Even 6 Indian Navy ships are reportedly on standby to deliver crisis relief to our neighboring countries. Thank you. So this was my point.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank
Can I
you.
have Ms. Gopika if you want to respond to the question?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, as already said by Ms. Nancy, she has already explained the various tactics and methods taken by India. Further, I would like to say that the world is going through a very tough time, and at the situation of this pandemic, what India should focus as a responsible country is to help their neighboring countries. As the saying goes, harder times will always reveal true friends. So, if India continue to do so, it will go long. It will be very fruitful in the longer period of time when it comes to the bilateral relations. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
Very
you,
good.
Gopika. My next question, the next question is by Mr. Rafiq Sheikh again to Mr. Gaurav Mishra.
Yes, ma'am.
The question is, do you think India's diplomacy and display of strength and capability lack before China compared to Pakistan?
Mr. Rafiq, first of all, I would like to, tell you and inform you that as per my opinion, uh, Pakistan is not at all in a position to, whether it is diplomacy, whether it is combat, or whether it is any sort of a capability. When you see India, first of all, it's the approach, the approach of our Prime Minister Modi, which looks, according to me, way ahead than the diplomacy and the approach of Pakistan. Point one. And last but not the least, the weapon and the kind of coordination that we have, we can definitely be able to answer China way better than Pakistan. Pakistan should take care of its internal issues. They cannot handle their international relations, according to me, in comparison to India. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gaurav. Over to you, Vidra sir. That's all. These are the only questions.
I would like to add what Gaurav Mishra has said. To my mind, the Sino-Pak axis, which emerged after the signing of the border agreement in 1963, when Pakistan transferred more than 1,000 square miles of Indian territory to China in order to build the Karakoram Highway. That was a turning point. And during the Sino-Indian War of 62, Pakistan declared India even an aggressor. The Sino-Pak axis is playing an important role, I can say a significant role in shaping the relations between the South Asian nations. And this Sino-Pak axis, Pakistan got support from China, not only to build infrastructure, but to build a strong military capability too. And Pakistan got every help, every technology to detonate the nuclear devices also. So if we compare the Pakistan diplomacy, definitely they have a fixed target. As far as our foreign policy is concerned, I have certain reservations about since Jawaharlal Nehru went to then Indira Gandhi, then the present Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Foreign policy, in fact, determined by a number of factors. There is no place for emotions. There is no place for, look, you are offering tea and you are hugging and saying, look, we are great friends, visiting the country uninvited, so many issues. And the media in India, I generally watch the discussions. Oh my God, they are making such sweeping statement without any base. हम चाइना को क्रश कर देंगे, हम ये कर देंगे. It's not possible. There are few issues. If you want to get the real picture, see the CIPRI yearbook, then you'll get the real idea where we stand, where the Chinese stand, where Pakistan is. The media here in India is, you can say, making such a statement difficult to digest, difficult to imagine, and difficult to believe. Thank you so much. It was a great honor for me to chair the session. Thank you, Dr. Lakshmi, Professor Lakshmi, and Dr.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Dr. Pathak and everybody, and particularly the participant, Bhavna, you did a great job. I must congratulate you. Thank you. अब lunch करने का time हो गया, चलते हैं. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support, and thank you, Bhavna, and thank you all presenters. Thank you.